Hi, welcome to the explanation of this new problem. So this problem was asked in the LeetCode contest 236 and the problem name is minimum sideways jumps. Before I dive deep into the explanation of this problem, I would recommend you to pause this video once and read the description for yourself. All right, I hope that you have read the description now. So let's understand what this problem is asking from us using this example 3. Okay, so this example 3. Now, let me go on the whiteboard. I have drawn a little already here. So we have a road and this road has 3 tracks, track 1, track 2, and track 3. And on this road, we have points from 0 to n plus 1. So for this example, we have from 0 to 5, right? And we have a frog, which always begins its journey from point 0 on track 2. So this green circular blob is my frog. Let's not judge the drawing of my frog right now. And let's understand the problem only. So now we are given an obstacle array. This obstacle array will give us the value of the track on which the obstacle is present. Now, what does that mean? So let's say for index 2 or point 2, the value of obstacle is 1. Now, this means that there is an obstacle on track 1 for point 2. Similarly, for point 4, the obstacle value is 3, which means that on point 4, the obstacle lies on track 3, right? So let me quickly draw these obstacles for you. One obstacle is present on track 2 of position 1. One obstacle was present here, right? I forgot the position of. Yeah, so another obstacle is present here. So let's understand what a frog needs to do. A frog needs to go from point 0 to point 5 by making least number of side jumps. Let's plot a path, right? Let's say that our frog has begun from 0 and there's an obstacle on point 1 on track 2. So it has two options. Either it will jump onto track 1 or it will jump onto track 3. Now this counts as a sideways jump, right? So let's say that it jumped on track 3. So our sideways jump has become 1. Cool. Now it has an unobstructed path from point 1 till point 3. So let's take it. Let's quickly move on to point 3. Now again, on the track that it was following, which is track 3, there's an obstacle at point 4. So it cannot move ahead. It needs to make a side jump. Let's say it side jump on track 2. And since there's an unobstructed path ahead, it will clear its journey and we'll have to increase the sideways jump with 2, right? So I hope that this is the correct path this is the correct path that is being followed and the output is 2. Now, what do we mean by minimum number of side jumps, right? So to understand that, let's plot another path for the frog. Let's say this time it did not jump on track 3. Let's say it jumped on track 1. Sideways jumps become 1. Path on the point 1 on track 1 is unobstructed, so it will jump here. Now point 2 is obstructed, so it has to make a sideways jump. The only viable option is jumping on track 3 because track 2 is obstructed for point 1. So it jumped here and side becomes 2. Side becomes 2. It follows an unobstructed path till point 3. Now, since point 4 is obstructed on track 3, it will need to make another side jump. Let's say it made on track 1. It's just an example, it could have made on track 2 also. And then it followed its unobstructed path till point 5. We have to increase the value of side jump by 1, making it 3. Now, as you can see, this is one possible path that the frog can follow, but this is not the optimal path. The optimal path was the one that I drew earlier because the number of side jumps were minimized, right? So I think it must have clicked your mind by now that we have to find all the possible paths and understand which path is minimum. Now, when we talk about finding all the possible paths, like I'm saying all the possible, it must have clicked you by now that we need to follow recursion. Recursively, we will make the frog follow all the paths and we'll find that path or We don't need to find the path. We'll follow that path, which gives us the minimum number of side jumps, and we'll store that in our result. So that's the objective of this question, right? Okay. Now, how do we go about it? How do we go about it? So what we need to understand is we'll recursively follow all the paths, and we need to keep track of the frog's position. Now, how can we keep the track of frog's position? So I guess it's very easy. You'll just need two variables. Those variables would be POS, which represents the point on which the frog is currently on, and we also need its track value, representing which track is it currently on, right? So using these two variables, we can keep a track of our frog on this entire road, right? Okay. Now, if you noticed here that since the path was unobstructed from point 1 to point 3, so our frog just jumped forward. There's nothing much to do here. We do not need to make any side jump. Our frog will quickly go from point 1 to point 3. So this tells us, let me just create a new whiteboard. So this tells us that our frog, so this tells us that if the position is less than n and there's no obstacle ahead, which means that in an obstacle array, position plus 1, there's no obstacle, which means not equal to 0. Not equal to 0 is incorrect. It's not equal to, it's not equal to the track value. Why track value? Let me explain it a bit. So we'll just simply move ahead. Position plus plus. Let me go to the previous whiteboard to explain why I put track. Taking some time to open. Anyways, so let's say that we were on track 3, right? And we were moving, sorry, and we were moving ahead, right? Now, when will we stop? When the value of obstacle also becomes 3. If you remember, the obstacle array holds the value of the track where the obstacle is present. So on track 3, on any given track, we'll move forward until the value of obstacle array for that index becomes equal to the track value. So this explains us that we'll make our frog move ahead continuously until the next position in the obstacle array has a value equal to the track. So this is how we move forward. The base case for this recursion is very simple. When you reach the end, if position is equal to n, just return 0, right? Because there is no side jump that you need to make now. You have ended your journey. Let's just return 0, right? So we understood what the frog will do if there is no obstruction, and we understood till when the frog will make these jumps. Now let's try to understand what will happen when there's an obstruction, right? So let's say there's an obstruction here, right? I'll quickly draw this track again. I'll draw my frog and I'll draw the obstacle. Please notice that we are on track 3. Right. So there's an obstacle ahead of you. What are you going to do? You have two options. Either you jump on track 2 or you jump on track 1. Which one will you choose? You'll choose the one which in future will give you the minimum number of side jumps, right? So this future will recurse, right? So basically, if you are on track 3, if track value is equal to 3, then your result will be 1 plus minimum of whatever answer you get by jumping on track 2, comma whatever answer you get by jumping on track 1, because those are the only two possible areas that you can jump. Similarly, let's say that you are on track 2, right? You were on track 2 and there was an obstacle ahead of you. You have two options. Either you jump on track 1 or you jump on track 3. So if the track value is equal to 2, then your answer will be result 1 plus minimum of whatever answer you get by jumping on track 1, comma whatever answer you get by jumping on track 3. So I think for track 1, it is clear to you now. If the track value is 1, your result would be 1 plus minimum of whatever answer you get by jumping on track 2 and track 3. So this is how you'll understand. This is how you'll recurse the possible answers in case when there's an obstacle ahead of you, right? Now, what if there was an obstacle? What if there was an obstacle on the point you intended to jump? Let's say you're on track 2. There's an obstacle at your position itself on track 1 also. These are the two obstacles. So it is pretty clear. You have only one possible option, jump to track 3 and then continue your journey, right? So what this means is if, let's say, let me change the color of pen. So let's say that obstacle position value is equal to 1. See, this is your position currently. The value of obstacle position is 1, which means that there's an obstacle ahead of you and there's an obstacle on track 1. So obviously, if you are on track 2, the only possible area that you can jump is track 3. Similarly, if there was an obstacle on track 1 and let's say you were not here, you were present here, there was an obstacle ahead of you. So if you're on track 3, then the only possible area for you to jump is onto track 2. So if you were on track 3, the only possible area for you to jump is on track 2. Now, obviously, there is no scenario where you will be over the obstacle. So if the obstacle position is 1, all you need to do is explore the possibility for track equal to 2 and track equal to 3. Since there's only one possible option, you don't need to take the minimum of any two values. You'll simply say that I'll jump on track 3 or I'll jump on track 2. Now, same will stand for when the obstacle position is 2 or the obstacle position is 3. You'll find these possibilities and you'll reach your result. So let's see the code till now. I think I have the code in my submissions itself. I'll just copy paste it here. Perfect. This one was written in Java. Cool. So let's run this code. Let's first just, I'm just checking if this code is working or not. Yeah, it's working. Now let's understand. So what's happening here? This while loop I explained that if there's no obstacle ahead of you, just move ahead. Increase the value of position. I think the variable I've used for position here is S, not a big deal. So just increment the value of S, right? This is the base case. If you reach the end, just return 0, right? Now, let's understand this. This is when you have multiple options. You have an obstacle ahead of you that we have discovered from this while loop, hence we stopped here. You have an obstacle ahead of you, and the current position that you're standing on, there's no obstacle on any other track. So the current position that you're standing on, there's no obstacle on any other track, just an obstacle ahead of you. So you have two options, jump here or jump here for track equal to 3, right? So let's see. So if the track is 3 and the obstacle position is 0, you'll find the minimum of the answer that is returned to you by jumping on either track 1 or track 2. Similarly, if you were on track 2, you'll find the answer, minimum answer that is returned to you by either jumping on track 1 or track 3. If you were on track 1, you'll find the possibility for track 2 and track 3 and take their min and store it in the result by adding 1 because you moved one step ahead. So this is the scenario when the obstacle value is 0, you'll have multiple options. We also discussed a scenario where you have only one possible place to jump. So there's an obstacle ahead of you and there's an obstacle on track 1, right? So you have one place to jump to. If you are on track 2, you'll jump on track 3. If you're on track 3, you'll jump on track 2. No need to find any minimum here because you have only one possible place to jump. Similarly, this stands true for here itself. If there's an obstacle on your position for track 2 and you are on track 1, then the only possible place to jump is track 3. If you were on track 3, then the only possible place to jump was track 1. And same stands for if there's an obstacle on track 3 and you're either on track 2 or track 1, right? This way you'll get your result. Now, since I'm returning the result in the if else itself, right? So your code will never reach here, but lead code will give you an error. Why say lead code? Java language will give you an error because your return type was int, so you have to return something. So I just took a garbage value of 0 and returned 0, but it's a 100% possibility that you will never reach here, right? All your results will be returned from here itself. Now, if I submit this code, I think you must have guessed it by now. This will give you time limit exceeded. It's taking some, yeah, time limit exceeded. Obviously, there will be many overlaps while we are trying to find a particular value of recursion. So how do we solve these overlaps? We solve them using a DP. It's as simple. So what you're going to do is you will make a DP and you will store your result in that DP before you return it. And if you have already calculated that result, you will simply return that result. So let's understand what we need to do to create this DP, right? So let me go on the whiteboard to explain you the DP's process. Now, in the beginning of this explanation, I mentioned that you need to have two variables to keep track of your fraud. What were those variables? Those variables were position and track, right? So at any given track or any given position, you'll have some value that your function returns. Let's say that value is X. Now, this value, if you have already computed, you do not need to compute it again. We can simply store it in a DP, right? So it's pretty clear a DP will be two-dimensional, right? And one dimension will represent the track value and one value and the other dimension will represent the position. Rather, let's take position to be the first dimension. I think that would be better. Let's take position to be the first dimension and the track to the second dimension. Now this position can range from 0 till n plus 1. And this track can range from 1 to 3 because there are only 3 tracks. Now, since we cannot define index 1 to 3, by default, the indexing is 0-based indexing. So our dimensions for DP will be n plus 1, comma 4. And obviously the position 0 table will be completely empty because there is no possibility of the 0th track, right? So our answer will be stored in the either track 1, track 2, or track 3. So this is how we're going to declare our DP. Okay, so we understood the dimensions of DP. Let's now make changes to this code. It won't take much time. Yeah, so let's declare our DP. So like I mentioned, our DP will have a dimension n plus 1, comma 4, right? And I've also taken an integer n, which will represent, which holds the length of the obstacle array, right? So I think I can simply send n here now. Now I'll also send this DP in our function because we need to maintain it. And here also in our declaration int DP will be used, right? So by default, currently the values in the DP are 0. Let's keep it 0 itself. We'll update them accordingly, right? So we also need to keep a track of the position that we want to fill the value in. We need to store this S somewhere because we are increasing its value when there's no obstacle. We need the original value. So let me store it in, let's say, current position equal to S. right? So DP current position and S, no current position is, sorry, track. This will store the value result. So see, this is how we are building our DP table, right? Before sending the result, before returning the result, we are storing it in a DP. The same change needs to be made, we need to make this change everywhere, right? Here and here. Let me just quickly make this change everywhere. So before returning our result, we are, let's use the word caching our data into this table so that when we compute it again, we can simply reuse the value. Now, how will we reuse this value? That's very simple. I mentioned that the position, that the values in this DP are currently 0. So all we need to check is if DPS, which is the current position, and track is not equal to 0, which means at some point we calculated this answer, then simply return this answer. Then simply return this answer. That's it. And since we made a change here in the function call, we'll have to make that change everywhere. Let me just quickly copy it at each place, because we are now using a DP table to store our answer to save time. Instead of recursing all the possibilities, there were 3 tracks. So this this recursive tree will be in the power, in somewhat in the powers of 3, right? We don't want that. We want to keep it on. So we use this DP and now we have stored our result. And if this result has been pre-computed, we'll simply use the result. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and compute the result, right? Now let's run the code. Let's in fact submit the code. Yep. So we are getting the right answer and we were able to solve it in 68 milliseconds. That's definitely much better than time limit exceeded. So I hope the explanation and the solution of this problem is clear to you. We'll share this solution along with the written approach in an editorial form with you. Thank you.